Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the Webb's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of Sox Prospects. I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. No joke for the intro this week. It's really don't feel like joking around on the intro this week. We're going to talk baseball, but this week kind of sucked. For anyone who's feeling down about it, I feel you, but we're gonna talk baseball here because that's what we do. And there's plenty to talk about this week, Ian. We've got promotion season is in full swing. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish guys promoted, 8 maybe since our last episode. So we got plenty to talk about there. A ton to talk about with the Boston Red Sox. You are tied for second place in the AL East. Boston Red Sox, after their win today, tied with the Toronto Blue Jays with a big series coming up next week. We're going to talk about that too, because there's plenty to discuss about that, for better or worse. We're going to talk about
say it though.
What's you can
can't say it yet.
Jared Carabas is
not yet.
What Jared says we need to do, right? I mean, that's
gotta listen.
Trust
the process.
Trust the process. Amen. I mean,
just not the process in Philadelphia. This one.
No, not that one. That one sucked. But at any rate, plenty going on. And of course, as always, your emails. But first, if you want to support the show, a few ways you can do that. As we always say, rate and review us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a cousin, tell your classmate from college that you ran into at the bar the other day. Tell your law school classmate who you ran into this morning at the farmer's market. Whatever. Tell a friend. Spread the word. You can also support us a couple of ways with the cash monies. It is the Sox Prospects donation drive. Every year we take some time mid-year to ask if you like what we do. If you think the work we put in is worth supporting, then we appreciate you stepping up and supporting us either on patreon.com/SoxProspects or SoxProspects.com/donate if you're more comfortable making a one-time donation to the site, to the podcast, for what we do. We like the model that we have, which is that we don't have a paywall, but we run on the support of those who are willing to step up with those one-time donations or by supporting the podcast on patreon.com/SoxProspects. So again, it's SoxProspects.com/donate if you want to make a one-time contribution, or patreon.com/SoxProspects if you want to contribute a certain amount per episode and get certain perks for that. Thank you to those of us who already have supported us on either one of those platforms. And thanks to those of you who will do so in the coming days. But again, this is the one time per year where we really kind of put ourselves out there and say, if you want to support what we do, if you have the means, look, obviously not asking for your last dollar. And I get times is hard for everybody, but if you've got the means and you really like what we do, if it's something that brings you enjoyment, we've gotten some great emails over the past couple of months saying some really kind things about, the place the podcast or what we do on the website has for folks. If you want to support that, we would really appreciate it. It allows us to do things like, go down to Fort Myers, support things on the back end, et cetera. And we really appreciate that. And of course, finally, send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. We've got a bunch for this week. We want to talk about what you want to hear about, as we always like to say. So you can send the stuff right there. Without further ado, Ian, let's jump into the news. Since our last episode, tons to talk about. Let's start in the minors. We'll work our way up to the news in the majors, which leads into some things that we want to discuss, maybe a little more in depth up in the majors. But looking at the minors first, Ian, maybe starting not with a promotion, but starting with the continued rehab and return from Tommy John of Brian Mata, which took itself to Greenville since our last episode, where he's made 3 starts, I believe.
Yep, he has.
And we've actually got some reports down there from our, correspondent, Chris Clegg. Has looked good. It sounds like he's going to Portland next. It seems like he's getting close. It would be great. You'd be able to catch him yourself. But really, just the big thing is not how he looks. It's not the results. It's that he is throwing and he is coming out of it healthy. And it looks like that's what's happening, while also looking a little impressive.
Yeah, I think the first thing that stood out to me is that his velo is pretty much all the way. I mean, it's all the way back. He was 96 to 98 in, I think it was his second rehab start or his first. I don't know which one. It was whatever. It was on June 10th. So probably his second. No, first. It'd probably be his first in Greenville. But yeah, he was up to 100, 96 to 98. So, the velo's back. Slider, Clegg said looked good, 87 and 90, and it's like a slider cutter thing. I don't know exactly which one he calls it, but yeah, mixing a curve and a changeup. It's hard to throw when you're a 4-pitch guy to integrate or use all of those in a 2-3 inning outing. But yeah, it's definitely encouraging. I think just for me that the velo is back, because we've seen obviously with some other pitchers in the system that velocity might not come all the way back after Tommy John surgery. So the fact that he's got that already is encouraging. And now it's just going to be about getting those reps, getting consistent innings and finding, working on the command and the secondary stuff, because that's ultimately, to determine whether he ends up in the bullpen or if he can stick as a starter long term.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, he was a guy who, I really liked back in, the before times before he got hurt, before COVID, an arm that, I wonder, Ian, if we need to pump the brakes on him as a guy that could help this year, because he's still got a ways to go before he's going to probably get 2 or 3 turns in Portland. He's
I don't think they
would
want to call him up this year, because I just don't think it's smart to bring a guy up and have him go from. He needs innings. He doesn't.
He's never pitched in AAA either.
Well,
it's not like he's a guy that had half a year in AAA.
Well, but also I just don't. I wouldn't want to disrupt him. I'm not a guy coming off Tommy John surgery who started his entire career. I'm not going to call him up and ask him to pitch, every second day out of the bullpen or anything like that. Yeah.
Yep.
For me, you give him a few starts in Portland, let him kind of get his feet wet there, face some more advanced hitters. And then, if he looks good in 3 weeks or so, you bump him up to Worcester and let him pitch the full season there. Cause I'm pretty sure their season runs late again. It's like mid-September again.
Yeah. I think everybody does now.
Yeah. So let him, let him finish off that full season. And then maybe I would not be surprised at all if they send him to the AFL at the end of the season.
And if I can make a note too, for folks who are watching this kind of thing, when Mata goes to Portland, he will be activated from the injured list and assigned to Portland, because AAA players cannot rehab in AA.
You and the 3 people in the world who care about this. And I'm just kidding.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, don't.
No, it's an important. I'm saying if you
see it, don't think it
note.
Means something. The fact that he's moving up to Portland is the next step in his progression, and that means something. But the fact that they will be doing it that way doesn't mean anything. It's like in spring training when they option a guy to AAA. And then option him to AA after the season, when the season's going to start. The fact that the guy goes to AAA to start doesn't mean anything. They're just getting him off the roster and they don't care. So again, don't read into the fact he's getting, quote, activated. It's just because he can't be rehabbing there because he's on the AAA roster, not the Major League roster. But moving on, other guys moving up, a lot of players moving up in the world since the last episode. Some of the quick ones, I guess we can kind of fire off real quick. And then there was a flurry of moves this week, because this week was the end of, I should have led with this, end of the first half of the minor league season officially. And in fact, I don't know if you saw this, Ian, that Salem tied for the division lead for the first half, but lost the playoff spot on a tiebreaker.
Ugh.
Yeah, they lost the season series to Lynch.
The goal difference?
Not the goal differential, you Anglophile.
It's the only tiebreaker I know. It's the only one I know.
It's they have played 15 games with Lynchburg and were 7-8 in those games.
Oh Jesus! It wasn't even it was 7-8.
It was close. Yeah, it was one game that they were behind Lynchburg. So unfortunately, the first half division title goes to Lynchburg and not Salem. But we'll see what happens in the second. There is always the second half, and they're
good.
But
as we'll get to in a second, they
did lose a couple guys, which is huge.
A couple key contributors.
That's true. But yeah, so some of the guys. Let's starting with a guy who moved up from Salem to Greenville a while ago, and Jacob Webb. Not much to say there. He was a college reliever who we knew was going to move up quickly. That was not surprising at all. Devlin Granberg, a guy who we've talked about here on the show a decent amount for a guy who's not necessarily a top 40 prospect even.
Yeah, I like him. I saw him again. I saw Worcester twice this week, and yeah, he's fine. Great org guy. Maybe gets a chance as an up and down emergency. Major leaguer, but yeah, he's the exact kind of guy you need in your system. He can play first base, he can play all 3 outfield spots, he can hit, he can run a little bit.
And we get asked about him because he'd been Portland's best hitter this year.
He's always hit. That's
exactly, and that's why we get asked about him.
And that's why I'm keeping him alive as a chance to get up to the big leagues, because he's hit everywhere. He makes a ton of contact. He walks a lot. He doesn't strike out very much.
He led off for Worcester the other day. In his second AAA game.
He's a decent runner. He's a 55 runner.
He's a 55 runner.
Oh, yeah. He can move, like, surprisingly. He's a 50-55 runner. Yeah.
All right.
I like him, but it's just there's no upside. Like, he kind of is what he is, but it's a very good baseball player who is, better than 99.9% of the world population of baseball, but just doesn't have that upside of some of the other guys.
Throwing one out there that isn't really worth talking too much about right now, but Luis Guerrero, a guy who the Red Sox took in last year's draft, had been in the Florida Complex League, got moved up to Salem. And it's interesting because he's already working as their closer, basically. Throwing, what did you say he's throwing, like 96 to 98 or something? Guerrero?
Yeah, he's throwing like mid to high 90s, apparently. And, it's obviously we got a long way to go with him. But
he's not going to be ranked or anything.
No, it's just especially as a pure relief guy, but it's just a name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, who knows what winds up happening there, but he's been, relied on pretty heavily immediately upon arriving there, which was interesting because he was like not in minor league camp for reasons we didn't even really know. But anyway, and then not yesterday, but a couple days ago, we had a slew of promotions following the end of the first half, which was interesting because usually, like, it used to mean a lot more, especially because it was when the minor league all-star games were too. So it's like you had a 3-day break, which is a terrific time to ask a guy to uproot his life and go play for a different team. But this year it was randomly midweek. And it's just like, all right, you're in Greenville. Guess what? Get your butt to Richmond and play tomorrow night for the Sea Dogs. So the promotions, I guess, going from bottom to top, because the most interesting ones were from Salem to Greenville. Catcher Nathan Hickey and first baseman Nico Cavatas moved up from Salem to Greenville. I mentioned last time they were easily the two most advanced hitters in that Salem lineup. I'm not surprised by Cavatas, especially. Hickey, I thought they might leave in Salem a little longer to work on catching, but again, that's also something you can do anywhere. The issue is just the thing with catchers is that you're also working with pitchers, and how was that going to play into things? But at any rate, they were comfortable moving him up to Greenville. And so both of those guys move up to Greenville. Moving up from high A Greenville to double A Portland were Alex Benellis, the third baseman / first baseman, and catcher Steven Scott, who has been catching exclusively this year. They made good on saying they think of him as a full-time catcher now. Benellis has hit pretty well. He had been scuffling a little bit lately. He wasn't, as hot as, say, Nico Cavatas, who homered again today and has apparently homered in 9 of his last 11 games, I think Stats tweeted, which is kind of bonkers.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Benellis has been fine. I'm not surprised they moved him up to Portland, frankly. I mean, he was hitting in high A, but, he'll be in Portland the rest of the year, probably start next year there as well, too. But nice to see him advancing. Scott, as you and I discussed, probably more of a making room for Hickey type move. But yeah, also older. I think he's 25. And then the final promotion was first baseman / outfielder Pedro Castellanos from Portland to AAA Worcester. Castellanos, a guy who's been around seemingly forever, had been in AA for a while, has been hitting well lately, had a very rough April, but he's been hitting well since May. Makes sense. He's been around. The Worcester roster has room for him, given that Roberto Ramos was playing at first base every day, and Tristan Casas has been hurt, and apparently as of last week hadn't even begun baseball activities yet.
Yeah, it's not good on Casas.
It's a bad high ankle sprain.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think what it is with his size and the amount of force, like when it's because it's right ankle, the amount of force that he's landing with on every swing. Like if you're compromised with that, it's just you can't play, like you can't hit.
Right.
And so I think that's the issue, is that it's his ankle's compromised stability wise. And
sure,
when you're putting down 260 pounds on your front side and you have a compromised ankle, that's dangerous.
It's a problem.
So I definitely agree with the cautious approach and just basically like let him get to 100%. As much as it sucks though, because obviously he's missed now, a full month now, and we're going to be pushing
at least.
And realistically, like the fact that he still hasn't started and we're a week later from that report, like at the earliest you can probably expect to see him back. It would be mid to late July now, like because he's going to need a lot of time to ramp up down there. So yeah.
And we'll double back to talking about the other guys who got promoted. But while we're talking about Casas, I had a thought the other day, Ian, and I'm curious what you think about this. With all of the injuries that the Major League Club has had this year, Chris Sale, now Nathan Eovaldi, Kike Hernandez,
Garrett
Whitlock. To be honest, the Tristan Casas injury might be one of the most important injuries because of the fact that they are getting such little production out of first base. Granted, Franchi Cordero looks like he's turning it back around lately. I admittedly haven't looked the last few days, but he was starting to hit again after he had been faltering for a bit after his hot start.
Yeah, he went through a stretch, which he's going to do where like his TrackMan and all that stuff was insane, but he just couldn't get a hit to fall. Like he was just hitting the ball hard and it was going nowhere. Or sorry, It was going really far, but just right into a glove.
Right.
But yeah, like he's hitting 224.
Well, his whiff rate wasn't great either.
He's 224, 303, 373 right now.
Which isn't great.
But his expected batting average is 283. His expected slug is 526.
Did you just see me catch that bug with one hand?
No, sorry. I was on a page over here. Like his StatCast page is so funny. His 85th percentile average, it's all red except for K rate and whiff rate. Like all like red because he's, above like the 80th percentile in almost everything except for BB walk percentage, chase rate, which he's 71st, and now it's above average. Like he's just gotten quite unlucky this year, which is why you keep him alive.
But the thing is that like,
but yeah, no, they definitely could use more production out of
first base. They could use more production and before trading for a guy, because the thing is the Josh Bell idea is starting to come up. I can't see them doing it.
I would love Josh Bell at first base for the Red Sox, but I don't think they're going to pay the price. The Nationals are going to ask for a ton for him.
Well, because what did they? So is Bell a free agent after this year? It's basically going to be Schwarber 2.0, right? Haven't we already established what the asking price is? Granted, Schwarber was hurt, which is what drove the price down. So do you consider they gave up a guy
free agent
last
after
year?
2023? Oh, he's a free agent in 2023. So he's a free agent after this year.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is you say, well, it's what they gave up for Schwarber. Well, Schwarber was on the IL when they traded for him.
Yeah, Josh Bell is hitting 302, 385, 488 right now. And he's not striking out that much.
And so that's going to cost you. Do you want to give up York, Walter?
It would cost you multiple top 10 prospects, I would guess, because Schwarber was one.
And they would ask for York. I don't know if you. I'm saying I don't think they would give up York, but that's what they're asking for a healthy.
Yeah, you'd be looking at
caliber.
You'd be looking at they'd ask for Mata, they'd ask for Blaze. That's
Miguel
the kind of tier.
Miguel Blaze.
Yeah. They'd ask for people like that.
Yep. Yeah. Rafaela. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll
get there. So, but that's the thing is if you have a healthy Casas, you give him a shot before you trade for Josh Bell.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I would do.
He definitely would have gotten a shot. But I just think I've kind of reached the point, I think, where you're not counting on him this season. In the major league
you can't
level.
now. No. You can't expect to, at least. Maybe he comes back, gets hot, and it works out that he comes up in September.
Exactly, but you can't count on that now. I don't.
But you can't. No, absolutely, and that's my point. Is that this has lingered for so long that it changes what you need to do at the first base position if you want to upgrade there. But those guys that got promoted, Ian. Anything you want to say about Castellanos, Benelis, Scott, Hickey, Cavatas? We'll talk a little bit more about Cavatas in the segment we're going to do after the news.
Yeah, I think we just save it for that.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, Benelis is fine.
Benelis is interesting. I would like to see him against more advanced competition.
Agreed.
He's obviously, he's getting on base at a good clip. The average is low, but I think that's kind of the player he is. I'm not expecting him to have a high batting average in his career.
Right.
It's just for him, it's going to be about making sure that, he can make enough contact to get to his power. Cause the metrics behind the scenes are good. It's a little too much whiff rate in the zone, but doesn't chase that much. He can hit velo. He's hitting the ball really hard. There's lots of there. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles against AA pitching.
Sorry. And then plenty happening in the major leagues, obviously, as well. Where do we start? Here's the list of things that have happened since the last episode. Okay. Kike Hernandez went to the IL and Jonathan Aruz came up, just to tell you how long it's been. And then Jonathan Aruz was designated for assignment and Rob Refsnyder came up. Aruz was claimed by the Baltimore Orioles who just called him up actually to the major leagues today. Christian Arroyo went on the COVID IL, which brought Jarren Duran up. Josh Winkowski came up because no. Okay. Garrett Whitlock went on the IL before, but they eventually called Winkowski up to take that start. Nathan Eovaldi went on the IL, which brought Cutter Crawford up, and then he went back down already. The Red Sox only have 4 starters on the roster. Jeter Downs was called up and then sent down when the team went to 13 hitters, 13 pitchers.
Which they finally did.
Which Major League's
apparently managers were not pleased about that, though. Obviously, I mean, they obviously want more pitchers if possible, but yeah,
I guess. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. It's the same rules for everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
right? No, but they just, the more pitching flexibility, the better.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't want you to have. I mean, yeah, you've got the 3 batter rule, but you still don't. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. And then, of course, the Red Sox acquired James Norwood from Philly in exchange for cash. And then today we're able to pass him through outright waivers. So he's on his way to the Worcester bullpen. So lots going on, Ian, there. And I think as far as the things to discuss, I've got kind of a list here. And the first one is Jarren Duran on field. He has been leading off for this team.
He's a dynamic player. That's what Alex Cora called him tonight.
That's the word that was the top of my head too. He brings an element that no one else on that roster brings with his speed. He can hit. This isn't Billy Hamilton.
Well, no, he's hitting.
He's hitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why they're pitching the way they are. Like, it's very weird. We know the pitches he struggles with, and he didn't see a single one of them tonight, and he had 4 hits. So I don't really know what that is, but I mean, he's hitting. He was hitting in AAA too. So
sure, no, that's what I'm saying. Like he was hitting, and he was hitting well. I mean, he was hitting the ball hard. He was hitting pitchers with both hands. Like
he's hitting for the season in the majors. He's 319, 373, 489.
And he's leading off, right? Which is the thing that I had asked previously. Is like, if you're bringing the guy up and he's your leadoff hitter, why is he going back down? And it's one thing if it's like it's because Kike Hernandez is hurt, but like, there's got to be a role for him at this point. Like, are we past Jarren Duran needs to be in AAA getting at bats? Like, or are we at the point where you make a part-time role for him with Jackie Bradley and Franchi Cordero and like Kike Hernandez even splitting those reps somehow to keep Duran up and contributing to this team? Because I just don't think of him as like a prospect who needs to be playing every single day at this point.
Yeah, but I think the thing that, I mean, and Hernandez had a setback to the point where he's still not started a rehab assignment. It seems like it's going to be a while. Like, a while meaning like weeks, not like, months or anything as far as we know, but like,
or a week or
2 weeks. He got set back some amount of time. So I think it's a situation that will work itself out eventually, but that could work itself out eventually, excuse me. But right now, like, I just look at if he comes back, do you keep him or Ref Snyder? Like, which one are you? Well, Ref Snyder's out of options, right?
Ref Snyder is out of options, and there's the handedness thing where
which is why I think Duran goes back, which is like why I think he goes back down.
Well, and that's the thing but the thing is, Ref Snyder for the role they are using him in,
fantastic,
is perfect.
Perfect.
And bench outfielder,
and
love it.
We should say also that, like, I think it went a little under the radar. He was raking in AAA.
He was their best hitter. He was arguably the best hitter in the system.
Right. And this is what I mean. It's like, it's no joke. Like, what he was doing was completely legit. Like, it's a great approach.
Borne out by all the numbers that you'd see. Like,
yeah, I mean, he's hitting the ball hard. It's good approach. He's got a little bit of pop. Like, he's the perfect bench player for them right now to complement Bradley. What they need to do, I think, is they just need to platoon Bradley and Duran, depending on if they're home or away.
Home away platoon is weird.
Jackie Bradley is like the best hitter in baseball at Fenway Park, but he can't hit on the road.
Well, I mean, that's got to be small sample size noise, doesn't it?
It's so weird. Have you looked at the splits?
It's not like they're ridiculous, but it's also just like,
I'm kidding, by the way, with this. This is just like a bit segment.
I thought you were being serious. I was very confused.
This is a bit segment. Okay, but I thought it was funny.
Okay, too. Now that I know that you're joking, fine.
I'm not serious. But it's like, it was more leading into the discussion.
Well, no, but there are also people on Twitter who say that seriously, which is why I thought
it was more to lead into the discussion of what, like, him versus
what do they
Bradley.
Do?
Yeah.
Well, then there's one very clear reason, and it's the defense.
Yeah, and
Duran's not a center fielder,
and you saw it tonight. I don't know. Tonight is Saturday, for the record, for those listening. And the Red Sox won. They won 4-2, and Duran had 4 hits. And this is the thing, he's making the plays right now, but his first step in initial read is still really, really bad, and he get away with it because of his speed. And the thing is, though, that the Red Sox really value those metrics, that reaction time, like that first step is something they're measuring. They know it. And I think they're rightfully so afraid that, it might not be hurting them now, but there's going to be a situation in a big game where that's going to come back and bite them. And if, Hernandez is out there in center, if Bradley, whatever, like that's not an issue. And I think that's the thing is that
part of the reason you transition from Renfroe to Bradley is for defense. That's the whole point. Right?
Well, exactly. But then that's the point why Hernandez would play center over Durant is the defense. So.
Oh, no. And that's what I'm saying is like they made it a point to upgrade their outfield defense, moving from Hunter Renfroe to Jackie Bradley, knowing that Bradley was probably going to hit at an inferior rate to
I
Renfroe.
think that the way the pitching staff has pitched this year has borne out that was the right decision. Like, and it's the same thing with Trevor Story at second base. Trevor Story is, I think, the best full-time second baseman in baseball.
Because he's a shortstop.
He's been fantastic defensively. I think he's like 7 DRS or something right now. Like their infield defense is greatly improved. The outfield defense is greatly improved. And the pitching staff has been arguably one of the top starting rotations in baseball. Like it's working. And that's why I'm not sure they're going to want to kind of like break with the formula that's working.
I mean, if you look at Duran's baseball savant fielding numbers, he is making the plays he's supposed to make. He's doing nothing spectacular. They have a catch difficulty scale. He has made every play that is like 1-star or 2-star or below. He has not made any plays that are 3. I don't think he's had any opportunities for 3, but 4 and 5-star catches he's not making. The question is, look, if he can continue to just do that, then cool. That said, is he going to be spectacular? No. Is it possible he's eventually going to hurt you? Maybe. And I think they know that. And I think, look, I mean, maybe the reason you send him back down is you send him back down to work in left field in Worcester because he just doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the outfield corners. He's worked most of his minor league career in the outfield and center. So move him down to AAA and say, hey, we're sending you back down. You've done a great job offensively. We're going to have you work on left field down there.
Yeah, because I mean, if they do that, they can move Verdugo to right, and then. Yeah, but I know they prefer Verdugo and left. I mean,
they do. Oh, they produce that, and they also like having Kike Hernandez and Jackie Bradley as 2 center fielders taking center and right.
If only Duran could play first base.
I mean, he probably could, but
I mean, it would complete.
It's also a gross waste of speed. Be the fastest first baseman ever.
Yeah, be like.
I don't know. Maybe that's not a bad idea. I don't know. Yeah. No,
it's just it's a weird situation where it makes me wonder. It's like he's playing so well, you almost can't trade him too. Because he's like, they don't have another depth option like that who can basically be a plug and play guy who's your leadoff hitter. Like
that's the thing. They need him
such
in the
a luxury to
now.
have.
Yeah.
And
I mean, who are you moving? I mean, if you're going to move him for Josh Bell, then yeah, maybe I do it. I don't know.
Right. But like the thing is that.
And by the way, Kike Hernandez is a free agent.
Right. That's what it's such a weird situation with him right now. Yeah. And Hernandez is buying them time, but he's Duran's at the point where he's overqualified to be like your AAA outfielder who's on the shuttle.
He's graduating from our rankings this month.
Right. So I think, I think it's one of these situations and it's going to work itself out. I just have a feeling that by the time Hernandez is ready, maybe someone else is hurt, maybe Duran's scuffling and they're just like, go work on something. So
we'll see. I don't see Ref Snyder going down. Put it that way. No,
that's what I was going to say. I think Ref Snyder's going to stay up because he's a perfect platoon partner for Bradley.
And there's no chance Ref Snyder clears waivers. None.
No, 0 chance. And also, I got questions. Ref Snyder's not an infielder anymore. Like I don't.
It's weird. Yeah, he hasn't played any infield.
No, and it's not. He hasn't played infield since 2019 or something.
Yeah,
and he played 2 games there. So yeah, he's not an infielder anymore. And I just got a couple questions on Twitter about that. Why he wasn't playing
Christian
Arroyo.
You don't need him to.
Well, no, the question was when Arroyo was on the IL. Why
would he take that role?
Why wouldn't they just move Ref Snyder there? And I was like, he's not an infielder anymore.
Oh, and by the way, everyone who's ready to cut Christian Arroyo, I mean, it's the same thing. It's he hasn't been good to start the year, but you don't.
The entire team wasn't good to start the year.
The entire team stunk. He's got a role. He's going to fill it. It's okay, so you're going to cut him to bring a different guy up to be the bench infielder. It's not like you can.
They also don't have a good fit for that role in the minors.
No,
as we'll
they
get
don't.
To later on.
Well, right.
But I mean,
are we going to get to that?
Yeah, probably. But I think we should talk about Toronto because
let's talk about Toronto.
There's going to be some interesting roster
because I guess that's a good transition out of Durant, or not out of Durant, but it's we know Tanner Houck is not vaccinated because of the April series. He and Cutter Crawford were the only 2 guys at that point who could not go up to Toronto because they were not vaccinated. Jarren Duran is also not vaccinated, as was confirmed this week.
Yep.
He's not going to go up.
Yep. And Houck is still not vaccinated.
Houck is still not vaccinated. Record, so he's not going to go up. And we're going to talk about Houck in a minute because he's the closer now. I guess, I mean, look, the Houck thing, you just bring up a Phillips Valdez or something. It's going to be some kind of non-sexy move.
Well, no, they're going to bring up a starter for that spot, though.
I guess that's true. Okay, yeah, because the other thing, right.
It has to be a starter.
Because we heard this week they were planning on having Garrett Whitlock available by then, or hoping Garrett Whitlock would be available. Apparently, he didn't have a setback. He's just not responding as quickly as they thought he might.
With his hip injury, I believe.
His hip injury. So I guess they said they don't know who's coming up.
We know who's coming up.
It's very clearly going to be Connor Seibold.
Oh, I know who's coming up because I drove 2 hours in Friday traffic to see Connor Seibold throw 1 inning. So I know who's coming up.
And we kind of knew before that, because here's the only reason they might not have is that he's going to be throwing on short rest, which is why they only had him throw on inning.
That didn't come out though until like right before the game. That's when the Whitlock thing came out.
Well, right. And that's why I said during the day, like, first of all, the date lines up perfectly with Cutter Crawford's turn in the AAA rotation. And oh, wait, he's not vaccinated. Presuming that Cutter Crawford has not gotten vaccinated since April, he's not an option. So no Crawford. You're now looking at the other two guys in AAA on the 40-man are Connor Seibold and Brian Baio. Seibold was slated to throw last night on Friday, Baio throwing on Sunday. You could have either worked it so Seibold only throws an inning or two last night, which is what they did, and he'll throw on, one less day of rest than typical. Or
no, but it'll basically be like he threw a side. Like,
well, but exactly, but it's more about keeping him in a
routine,
right, keeping him on his days. Or you could just push Baio back a day and have him start on Monday. Right, those were kind of the two options, or do a bullpen game, which like
made no sense.
Toronto,
with Toronto and no Houck, it made 0 sense.
Yeah,
because you look at the bullpen right now, and this is I think one of the biggest kind of things they're missing right now is they don't have a bridge guy with Houck being the closer. Like they have all 1 inning relievers. They like Brazier threw 2 innings, I think, a couple days ago.
Yep,
but they don't have like the Houck, Whitlock last year, that type of guy who can come in and give you 2 to 3 innings.
I mean, maybe Davis can give you. I mean, didn't they use Davis for their like?
They have guys who can do it, but they don't have like
Schreiber can actually. Schreiber can. But
Schreiber's also their setup guy. So
they're also not using him, and Schreiber's probably going to be freaking closing in Toronto because Houck's not going to be there.
Exactly. So like it's going to be Schreiber and Strom closing in Toronto. Like, so yeah, it's going to be Seibold, and I'm interested to see how he does. Like his numbers this season are fantastic.
How do you look when you saw him last night?
I mean, he was good, and you could tell he knew it was 1 inning, and I had a feeling
he was airing it out.
Yeah, he was up to 96, and I mean, I know his velo has not been like that this season. He's been, he was averaging like low 90s with his fastball. So he was 93 to 95. I think it was only 193, mostly 94, 95.
Yep,
top 96. I only threw 1 changeup, got a whiff on it, and his changeup was good, 81 miles an hour. Love that separation. 10 plus miles an hour is kind of that benchmark that you like to see.
Yep.
And slider was good. I mean, the slider was good. It was like 86 to 88. I would say it flashed like a 55. Little inconsistent, but it was a hard slider. Like he got 3 whiffs with it. It was impressive. He looked good. He gave up a home run on the first pitch of the game. He got ambushed. Like, guy was just sitting dead red, and he threw a 94 mile per hour fastball or something right down the middle, and he just crushed it.
Yep.
But after that, he got, strikeout, I think like a weak single and then a ground out. So he looked good. And I don't know, like, I'm interested to see what the velo looks like, because I've heard he's more like 90 to 93 this year, 91 to 93, maybe. Topping out like 94, 95. So, we'll see what he is if he goes deeper into the game, but I think it's definitely worth a shot. That for the season, 51 innings, 51 strikeouts, 14 walks, only giving up 37 hits, 209 ERA, whip is under 1. Like, he deserves a shot, and let's kind of see, like, Winkowski, see what they got with him.
Yeah. So we'll get to see that. He will go up, and I think what you do is you just bring him up as the replacement player. I mean, he's on the 40, so I guess the replacement player doesn't really matter. So you just recall him. He comes up, he pitches his game and goes back down, and they bring up.
Well, can they do that? Could they like option him within the series and just bring up someone else up? Yeah. I just thought there were different rules with like pitching.
No, the only thing that's different rules with Toronto is that if you take a guy off because he's not vaccinated, he goes on the restricted list.
No. There's a rule that you can't, like, there's something with like a Sunday starter. Like, you can't, your Sunday starter, like They basically don't
you
want
can't put your starter who just started on the restricted.
That's what
list.
it is. That's what
you
I
can
meant.
option guys.
Okay,
like, yeah,
so that's what I was
this
wondering.
would just
I just
be a
didn't know if there
normal
was
option
something.
move.
Yeah,
you
it's
can't,
like you can't put the Sunday
you can't
starter on the
swap
restricted
out.
list.
Yeah, exactly, because he wouldn't have played anyway. Or not it's not Sunday. It's like if a guy started the game before your series,
yeah,
you can't put him on the restricted list because he wouldn't have pitched anyway.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's what
it was.
Yeah, so they'll he'll travel to Toronto with them if he's starting. Is he starting Tuesday? Yeah, I think he's starting Tuesday. So on Monday they won't have made a roster move. Or I guess they'll take Houck off and add him.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I think. I think
they'll take Houck off and add him. But the thing is you can then, I presume, you can option Seibold on Tuesday. Oh, but you won't want to because then it's Houck.
Well, but the thing is, they might need him next turn around if those guys aren't ready because I don't think they have an off day. So
that's true. So then they'll have to option a pitcher when Houck comes back on Thursday anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Forget all that. But the thing for Duran is, who are they going to bring up for Duran? Obviously, Jeter Downs came up for 3 days when the roster went to 13 hitters, just because they knew Christian Arroyo was going to be back soon.
Well, they needed an infielder because they knew they wanted to give either Devers or Bogart. Well, they wanted to give both, but Bogart talked his way into the lineup.
Right.
They wanted to give one of the infielders a day off, and the only other guys that were options were, catchers. So
both of them were catchers. It's Wong and Hernandez. It was
Jeter Downs was the only option.
But at least the way it has always worked this season is that when you put a guy on the restricted list because they're not going to Toronto, is that you can plug in anyone from the organization. They don't have to be on the 40-man.
Yeah.
They're a replacement player. Heard that might not be the case, but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, that's how I understood it too.
So to me, the guy you call up is Jalen Davis.
And I would agree. He was already up with the big league club earlier this year.
Has been on with the big league club. He has been their best hitter in AAA over the past month.
Yeah, Connor Wong has something to say about that.
Wong. Okay, sorry, fair. Best non-catcher hitter, but Wong has probably been. It's between the two of them.
And I should say,
Wong's been raking.
Wong looks very good at the plate compared to what I saw earlier in the season. Like, I think he had 3 hits in both games I saw, or he had multiple hits, I should say, in both games.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks very confident at the plate. He's making much better swing decisions. It's not expanding as much as he was earlier in the season. Like he definitely, I think, looks like he's shortened his swing a little bit. It doesn't look as long and loopy. He seems a little quicker to the ball. So
yeah,
he's been impressive. But Davis was the same thing. Like, he almost hit for the cycle in the first game I went to.
Yep.
And he's got legit power, and he seems very confident at the plate. Obviously, there's swing and miss, and he's got his flaws, which is why he's in AAA. But I think he can help in a limited role and kind of give them, a little jolt if they need to. Because I would assume that Ref Snyder will just start in center, or they'll start Bradley in center and Ref Snyder in right. But as a fourth outfielder for a series, I think he would be fine. Yeah,
absolutely, and reward the guy who's playing well in AAA, right? I mean, makes sense. So I think that's what they're going to go with there. The other thing we want to talk about, we talked about Tanner Houck. Tanner Houck is now the team's closer, pretty much officially.
And this is he's a closer. He's not like a,
working late.
We'll close him some games. We'll, give him multi innings in the next. He's there. He's the closer, and
he is when they are getting in trouble in the ninth. They bring in Tanner Houck, no matter what.
Yeah, and I think it's a great role for him,
as we have been saying for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we talked about it for a long time that we weren't convinced he could start, and I think it's just telling that the Red Sox have basically pulled the plug on him as a starter.
And part of it is out of necessity, right? But the thing is that they could also use him as a starter right now. They're starting Winkowski. They're about to start Connor Seibold, although I guess they couldn't use him for that role because it's Toronto. But there's room for him as a starter. Granted, it's nice that they have that depth, but they needed to use him as the closer, and they went to him. And this is the thing that kills me when everyone's like, they need to move Whitlock back to the bullpen. No, if Whitlock's going to be a good starter, that's a better role for him. Houck can be the guy that you want Whitlock to be in the bullpen. Why can't Houck be that?
Well, that's the thing is, I think people would like to have both there, if that makes sense. And I do think we might reach that point eventually, especially with, Chris Sale's taking the next step on his rehab. He's supposed to move up soon. I don't think we mentioned that earlier, but Sale seems like he's on the track on the way back.
His next game is going to be in Portland, as you corrected me earlier.
Sale, if they get Sale back, they get Whitlock back, they get Evaldi back. And then if Paxton eventually comes back, in, late July, August, there's not going to be room for Whitlock probably in the rotation because, I mean, you're not taking out Eovaldi, you're not taking Sale, you're not taking Pivetta out. So the other two starters, Walker's pitched great this year. I don't think you mess with him. So it's basically, and then it's like for that last spot, is it if Paxton's ready? Is it Rich Hill? Is it Whitlock? Like that's what it's going to come down to, I think. So,
right.
I think eventually we're going to see both in there, especially too, is I think they'll want to limit Whitlock's innings too. I don't think they want him to throw a full season's worth.
I mean, the long and short of it is that if you've got everyone healthy, which let's get there first.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Eovaldi's thing is lingering. Eovaldi's issue is lingering. Whitlock's issue is lingering. It's who knows what happens with Sale's rehab. If all three of them are back, you not only have Whitlock. I mean, it's them. Those are three guys. And then you've also got to work out Pivetta, Walker, Hill. Right. And again, let's get there. Let's get all six of those guys healthy. But if all your starters are healthy, Whitlock's in your bullpen. And he's your bridge guy.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's the ideal. Maybe they don't have to trade for bullpen help. Honestly, I'd still like them to. I mean, I'm sure they will.
They will. You always do.
You always do when you're in contention, but they're not going to necessarily need, like, it's going to be another Robles, Austin Davis type move. It's not going to be.
The thing that's interesting too is like Josh Taylor seems like he's on his rehab and actually progressing now.
Back. He made two starts and I guess two starts because
he pitched tonight too.
So that's he's starting every other game right now for Worcester.
No, that's not true. He started Tuesday. Oh no, he started the Baio
every other game. Yeah,
which was the I guess it is. Yeah,
Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
No.
He didn't play Thursday. On Monday.
Did he pitch Thursday?
Yes, he did. He started.
Did he?
When did you go? You went Tuesday. On Friday.
He pitched Tuesday and today.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm telling you, he's pitched every other game since he opened. Trust me.
I didn't realize he pitched Tuesday.
Yeah, he's pitching Thursday, one inning every other day.
Yeah, but like when he comes back, I don't think you can carry four lefties in the bullpen. So I don't.
No, I mean, I think Austin Davis is clearly the guy that goes down. Although, I mean, are they at the end of their rope with Diekman?
But like Diekman was,
he's also getting money.
Well, but Diekman, he also has another year. But yes, he does.
Wasn't Diekman a 2-year deal? You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But
sorry.
What's his name? Like Diekman today pitched like a leverage, got a hold. I don't see him going down, but I just don't.
Austin Davis is clearly the guy that goes down.
It's gonna have to be another. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with those guys too.
Yeah, I mean, again, let's make sure everybody's healthy first, right? So we'll go from there. I mean, maybe you just option someone else for a short amount of time and make sure everyone's healthy before you do a DFA. Davis does not have options left, is the problem. So you would need to designate him for assignment, and he's been fine, but he's also pitching. He's out pitching his peripherals as well. So
yeah, I mean, it would probably be Davis, but yeah,
it would be Anyway, so we'll see what happens with all of that. Anything else in Bostonian? I think we kind of hit everything we wanted to there. The only other thing we wanted to mention, news-ish wise, and we're going to do a segment after this called "Are You Buying It? Yes or No?" And we're going to go through players who have been particularly hot that we're getting asked a lot about, and talk about whether we're buying it or not, what they're doing. We're not going to talk about anyone in the complex leagues because there's just not enough of a sample size to do that yet. But one thing we wanted to mention is
like Miguel Blaze literally raised his average like 100 points in 2 games. Like, there's
like,
no point in worrying about complex league sample sizes yet, except,
well, not worrying about, just as kind of a noteworthy bit of interestingness. The Dominican Summer League Red Sox, especially the Dominican Summer League Blue Red Sox,
are the best team in baseball history.
Are raking right now. I'm trying to bring up the stats. Here we go. All right. The DSL Blue is, I just had it. Why'd it go away? Come back. Okay. Standings wise, they're
14-3. They're 14.
They're 14-3 and they're in first place. DSL Red Sox Red are 9-6, so they're also doing well. Runs scored. The crazy thing is the Red Sox don't even lead the DSL. I just realized, Ian. They have 131 runs scored in 17 games. So that is, if you do your math real quick, 7.7 runs a game. Somehow the DSL Athletics have 134 runs scored in just 15 games.
Yeah, I mean,
which is even more bonkers.
That's like
it's
almost
the DSL.
9. That's 8.9 per game.
Yeah. But after that, you're talking teams in the 115s. Although actually, this is tremendous. This is the best. The third highest run scored, Ian, is the DSL Cleveland Red team with 129. They are
like 30 runs less.
They are 6-11. No, 129.
I thought the Red Sox were 156.
No, 131. I said.
Oh, I thought you said 156. Sorry.
No, 131. They have 129 runs scored. However, they are 6-11 because they have given up 142, which is far and away the most runs given up. There's no one above 110. There's no one above 105. So yeah. But that said, I mean, they are just raking right now, led by a first baseman / outfielder by the name of Armando Sierra, who is hitting, at least entering today, 476, 542, 714, chasing 500, never mind 400.
Yeah. He's also he's almost half the strikeout rate from last year too.
Yeah, he's been
to 12.5.
He's been good. He's in his second year in the DSL.
Strikeout rate there, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can care about it because if it's high, that's bad, right?
Fair.
I mean, he's already passed his runs created numbers from last year. I mean, he's been a monster for that team. I actually think it's not impossible that he gets called up to the Florida Complex League after the draft because they don't really have a lot at first base right now, and he would be their starting first baseman. But shout out to the DSL Red Sox Blue squad for just raking. They have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 guys hitting 300. 8 guys hitting 300 or better. 9 guys with an OPS of 771 or higher. Just absolutely raking. And the funny thing is Framey De Leon, who's the big bonus baby on that lineup, is not even hitting all that great. He's got like a 222 average, but he's a glove guy. So anyway, yeah, we just wanted to mention that because it's pretty hilarious. Again, can't really read too much in a complex league stats, but it's just funny to see the way they've been just destroying the baseball. But anyway, all right. We want to do one more quick segment before we hit your emails called Are You Buying It? Basically, what this is, we get asked about a lot of guys a lot in your emails, on Twitter, on the forum. Guys usually who are performing very well. And one of the one of the things we always get asked specifically is when they're going to get promoted. We're not talking about that necessarily, because first of all, some of these guys have been promoted relatively recently. And frankly, look, some of these guys we get asked about, like one is Blaze Jordan. I will preview for you. Blaze Jordan has had basically one good month. He had one bad month, one much better month, and one excellent month, stats wise. What we're going to talk about is, are we buying what they are doing statistically? Are they, are we, we're going to caveat the hell out of it, obviously, because are you buying this mean for a given player is very different. I guess just, are you buying what they're doing statistics wise versus their projection is, I guess, what it is, right?
Can I say one thing about Jordan?
Sure.
I would slightly disagree with him having only one good month. Like,
it's one excellent month and one good month and one bad month.
I mean, I think it's one horrible month, one very, very good month, and one insane month. Because in May he was 323, 359, 515. Like that's okay. That's very good. Really You're right. Good. Okay, I forgot it was that good. Yeah, and then
in June, this month he's exploded.
He's 421, 477, 724.
Okay, yeah, that's real good. So I guess it's like, are you buying that out of Blaze Jordan? Obviously not literally those numbers, but the breakout. And so I guess we might as well start with him, Ian. We've got 7 names here. Just, are you buying? I guess I'll say, what are you buying, or yes or no, and you can answer, and then I'll answer too. But Blaze Jordan, are you buying him as, frankly, being this crazy good hitter at the low A level that his numbers are bearing out right now? Maybe that's a bad way to put it. But
no, that's not how I would have put it. I'm not buying him long term.
Okay.
Right now. I think what he's doing in the low A level makes sense though, because I do think he has some hitting ability. I just think that there are just still some red flags with me. We need to see how he handles velocity, I think, is the most important thing. And he's not pulling the ball very much. And those are kind of the two things that I've noticed just from watching the Salem games and also talking to people who've seen the Salem team, is that, it's just, there's not a lot of hard contact for him to the left, to the pull side. And when you combine that with struggles against velocity, You know, any fastballs, good fastballs, he's not really hitting at all this year. That's concerning long term. You know, right now you can get away with that because you face a lot of junk in low A, especially these days with no more pen league or, you know, short season A ball to filter out the kind of the bad arms. There's some really bad pitching in low A. I mean, like Aberdeen or who was it? Who did they play? They played Aberdeen last week, right? Or who did they play that they murdered? The Salem.
Delmarva.
The Delmarva pitching staff told me is like the worst.
Six and a half runs a game they're giving up.
Yeah, I talked to someone who saw them and he told me it was one of the worst pitching staffs he's seen in several years. And the Red Sox teed off on that team. And it's like things like that when you're playing. And I think they play Delmarva like basically once every 6 weeks or something.
They've played them 3 times already this year.
Exactly. Like that, you know, that's 18 games against them because of the way the schedule is set up. If you have one or two,
it's a weird schedule. Like they don't play a team that's in their division.
That's at all. Weird. Is it Columbia. A far drive? I guess that's kind of far. No, it's not. Wait, Columbia, South Carolina. No.
Yeah. Columbia, South Carolina is not far from Salem, Virginia. It's not that bad. They're in the same division. Far. I could see them not playing, but the thing is they play teams in the other division. It's really weird. But at any rate, I mean, the thing with Jordan too is it's good that he's hitting like this, but like one of the most unnatural fielders I've seen with the glove as well.
He's not a very good defender. And I think that's, you know, long term, you have to evaluate the entire package when it comes to him as like a prospect. And, you know, he's not going to add a lot of defensive value. It's going to be bat first. And the type of, by the way, that did Salem, New Hampshire. Shout out Salem, New Hampshire. Awesome. I was just about to say it was like a 14-hour drive. It's like 5 hours.
Yeah,
so that's not kind of far
for the minor leagues. That's not.
It's not that bad. But you know, he's definitely got some feel for hit, and you know, he's made strides this year. He's making contact, which is good. I think he's making contact at kind of a better rate than I was expecting, actually. But he's still chasing a lot, and yeah, like it's the type of things that don't get exploited until you face more advanced pitching. You know, he's not going to be seeing a lot of guys throwing 94, 95 plus down there, but when he gets higher in the minors, he will. Mm-hmm. And similarly, you know, once the book gets out that he can't pull the ball, he's just going to get hammered with fastballs up and in. And that's kind of my concern with him is how he adjusts to when he faces that type of pitching. And I don't think that's something we're going to know until he reaches, you know, potentially Portland and Double-A. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if he hits, you know, reasonably well this year and then obviously again next year. But, you know, those are the type of things that stick with you. And until we see him, you know, capable of making those adjustments. And I think it's something like the pull stuff is it's legit. Like if you watch his home runs, all of them are to right center.
Well, right I disagree. His home runs on fastballs.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Except when he gets a hanging breaking ball, he can pull breaking balls, but fastballs he just really struggles to pull right now.
And it's in the you know, when I brought that up on our forum recently, it was like, what do you mean? You want him to like roll over everything and pull it? It's like, no, I want him to be able to pull velocity when he recognizes a fastball to just like attack it and go deep with it.
Yeah.
Taking it the other way in part tells me he's not recognizing it immediately as a pitch he can drive.
It's also the bat's a little slow too, you know.
Yes.
And that's not, you know, it's. I haven't seen him live since spring training, but I noticed in spring training too, everything was to right field, and it's, you know, it's a combination of the trigger is a little slow and the bat's a little slow, and when you have those two things combined together, you're going to struggle to pull velocity.
All right, next guy, Nico Cavatas, a guy who was just in Salem and just got promoted. Are you buying what he's doing at the plate right now, Ian?
I think he can hit. I mean, for power, I also think that he's going to rake in Greenville. I don't think we're going to know anything about him until he reaches the high minors.
I was saying Double-A earlier, and I think it actually might be Triple-A with him.
He has such a good approach that if that keeps going, that alone, when you combine it with his power, might get him to the big leagues. I think the one concern I have right now is his platoon splits are pretty noticeable, but he can crush velocity. Like he's got, I mean, you saw that home run he hit in his Greenville debut. Like he's a professional hitter. Like he, in the minor league sense of what, you know, the best you're going to see. Like he's got feel at the plate. His walk rate, I think, is like close to 18% this year. Like he's getting on base a ton. He's got raw power. It's just, he adds no defensive value because he is not a good fielder either. So it's all going to come down to the bat, but I mean, I'm buying it for now. Like, you know, a lot of the metrics are good with him too. So
Yeah.
We're just going to have to see him in the high minors. But I think the problem with him is long-term is there's a very fine margin for prospects like him. If you have platoon splits, for example, like that's a big deal. That's the difference between being an everyday first baseman and being like Dan Vogelbach, or, one of those guys who's a lefty killer, or excuse me, like who's a left-handed hitter who kills righties. Like, so it's going to be something that's going to be, we're going to have to be closely monitoring with him. But yeah, I'm been very impressed by his performance this year. And I think there's a lot to like there.
I agree. I like him. I think because he's a big guy who hits for power, there's a lot of like, is he just Joe Davis? Like, no, he can hit. He does not.
He's got bad speed
in the zone
like that's
necessarily the way that there's swing and miss there.
Yeah,
especially because like I mentioned,
he's a power hitter. Like there's going to be swing and miss,
and it's the bat path is the thing is it's when a player hits the ball, there are angles you expect the ball to come off of it. And if you think of the normal range and then you tilt it up a little bit, that's where the ball comes off of his bat. He's not rolling over and grounding out a lot. That said, that can work. I'm just interested in how those upper minors pitchers attack that bat path. So that's what I need to see. And I don't think low A or even high A hitters pitchers are necessarily going to be able to exploit that bat path.
And they can't execute.
They can't execute
commands and like the sequencing
fastball up
to do that. Yeah.
Can you beat him with a fastball up that he can't get to with that bat path just because of how they interact, right? Like is a breaking ball that breaks out of that bat path going to, work for a low A pitcher? Probably not. Will a triple A pitcher have a breaking ball that can break out of that bat path? Sure. Yeah. And so we'll see if he can hit it. If he can hit it, then there's a lot of potential there. But now, he's a guy that if I'm ranking to 30, I probably make sure is in there.
Yeah.
But
and this is the problem with him as long term is there's just not a lot of there's gonna be no defensive value. So
first base only, and it's not a great
might not
defender.
Even be first base. It might be DH only.
Right.
And but I mean I'm like his power, I think it's extremely legit, and it's all fields. It's velo, and that's I think what kind of separates him from Jordan in that sense is that I think Jordan has crazy raw power. I think he has crazy raw power to the pull side in batting practice, but it just isn't translating in game right now. Whereas Cavatas is showing that ability to pull the ball right now.
All right, finishing up with one more guy in Salem, Edinson Paulino. A guy who has had a great start to the year is also coming on strong lately, had a tremendous June as well. But again, Salem has picked 2 of the 4 teams they face this month are 2 of the worst pitching staffs in that league in Delmarva. And I forget who the other one was, but they faced another team that was giving up 6.5 runs a game as well. Are you buying or selling what he's doing at the plate?
I like him.
Or not buying or selling, but are you buying?
I think that he can. I think he's got a really good chance to hit. I think that he's putting up some really impressive ex velos for a teenager. He's not missing in the zone a lot, which is nice to see. I mean, the strikeout rate is manageable. Obviously he chases, but he's 19. That's not that surprising, but
I'm not even that bad.
No, honestly. I've been impressed by his ability to handle velocity. I think that the biggest thing for him is just got to tighten up the approach. If he can get, he can hunt his pitches better and not necessarily get himself out as much, expanding the zone, then I think that's kind of going to be the next step in his development. Cause it's not like he strikes out a ton, but he's one of those guys who you can get a little aggressive and like he'll chase a pitcher's pitch and roll over on it, things like that.
Right.
If he can improve in those areas, I think that he's got a chance to be a very interesting player. Cause I think he can hit. I like the defensive versatility. I think he's passable at shortstop for now. I mean, we'll see in the future, but he's playing some second base too, playing some third base. They're trying him in the outfield now.
Although they actually haven't played him in the outfield for a decent amount of time.
Oh, really? I just know he played there a little bit earlier in the season.
He played there a little bit earlier in the season, but especially, he didn't have to play there at all while Marcelo Meyer was hurt. And even since Meyer has come back, he hasn't played the outfield at all. So I wonder if they're kind of giving up on that piece of things. They've been playing Tyler Miller and Carson Seamus in the outfield pretty regularly lately. So I think those guys are getting outfield reps, and Paulino has kind of settled in at third with Blaze Jordan at first.
Yeah.
For the most part. And then he'll get a game at short or a game at second when Meyer or Reiner Bonacy sits.
Yeah, I think for me that the thing is he's kind of separated himself from those other teenagers in that with that level, like the Jordans, the who's
Bonuses.
Bonusy, thank you.
Not Meyer.
Not Meyer.
Meyer's accepted from
but
that statement.
In that like that next tier of hitters, you know, in like the 10 to 20 range in the system, 10 to 15 range of the system.
Yep.
And yeah, he's someone definitely we're going to be watching closely going forward.
Mm-hmm. A guy that I'm springing on you, admittedly, that I realized I'd meant to put on this list that we didn't talk about is Matthew Lugo. Has had a very hot start to the year, did not get promoted, has been playing nothing but shortstop, even though the defensive potential there we were kind of shaky on. But he's now hitting third in that lineup. He's been one of their best hitters for the entire year. Are you buying what Matthew Lugo is doing in Greenville?
I mean, I'm buying in the sense that I think he's a legit prospect. I think I have him in my top 20 now. Mm-hmm. Long term, I think I have the same concerns I saw at the end of last year in Salem, where I'm just not sure what his carrying tool is. Like, I think he's a good prospect, but I'm just kind of worried it's a bunch of like 45s and 50s, which if you can play shortstop, which I've heard his defense is better this year than it was last year, which is encouraging. Mm-hmm. But hopefully I'm going to get down to Greenville at some point and be able to see him in person, or we'll see him when he gets promoted. But, you know, I'm just not sure there's a single tool there that is going to carry him to like an everyday role. I think he might end up being, you know, more of like a bench type.
CJ Chatham syndrome, if you want to call it something.
It's because like the defense is, you know, you're looking at like maybe a 50-55 right now. Mm-hmm. The speed is about 52, you know, the powers, it's not great, but he's got some pop. He's got sneaky pop. The hit is like inconsistent. He still chases a lot.
Chases a ton and does not see many pitches is the thing that worries me.
No, he's very aggressive at the plate. So yeah, I think I'm encouraged by the start he's had. I mean, he's hitting 279, 331, 529, 521. I think he's cooled off considerably in June, if I would have had to guess, because I remember his numbers being much better when I was looking a couple weeks ago. But I still think there's you know things to like there. It's just I'm kind of like cautious with him because I don't think like he doesn't have like the feel that Paulinho does for hit, for example, or like the power of Cavatas. I'm just not sure what is the carrying tool there.
Did you know his middle name is Jabel? Jabel? No,
I did not.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up his splits. We do know that he's Carlos Beltran's nephew. We knew that. I did not know his middle name was Jabel. Yeah, in June, he's hitting 229, 264, 494. So he's still hitting for pop. He's got 4 home runs this month.
Right, but that's, yeah.
And again, you know, that could easily just be stuff isn't falling in. But, you know, doesn't walk a lot. Strikes out a little bit. But, yeah, I'm with you there. Moving on, do we have any other hitters or are the rest? Oh, no, we've got one more hitter in the big one that everyone is talking about. I think that he's the one, for rightly or wrongly, a lot of people are seeing where we're going to rank this guy in our mid-year rankings update on July 1 in Ceddanne Rafaela. Went to Portland and has been raking in Portland as well as he did, if not better.
He's had like 2 bad games and he's down to like 280 now, though.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't, you know, it's great what he's doing in Portland, but you don't want to go crazy.
I mean, he's got 5 home runs in 16 games. I think that's the most impressive part is the power. But if you watch them, like it's Reading is where he hit I think 3 or 4 of them, and Reading is a man.
I don't think it was 3 or 4. I think it was only 2.
Was it 2?
I remember looking and seeing Reading and being like, oh, and then it was like, oh, it wasn't just.
But the
Reading.
2 I saw there, like the one to right field was like a pop up, and right field and Reading is super short.
Yep.
One to left field, he hit pretty well, but yeah, I mean, I'm buying in the sense that I think he's a top 10 prospect in the system,
no question. At this point, I think. Given the defense, if we're going to ding Jordan for his defense, we got to praise Rafael for his.
Well,
right?
And this is the thing for him.
Are you buying the offense?
I'm not sure because I know he's hitting for power right now. I'm not sure long term. There's that type of power that he's showing right now. Like I think he's got like the most extra base hits in all of minor league baseball or something.
He might,
or not, and maybe not. It might be the most extra base hits in the Red Sox like organization, including the major leaguers. I think that was the statistic.
That's probably it. Yeah, that I buy. That I definitely, because he's got like 6 triples. Like,
yeah, he's got 14 home runs already this year.
Yeah,
but I'm concerned. The approach and the hit tool are the concerns for me. Like in Double A, it's a small sample, but it's
aggressive,
19% K rate, 3% walk rate. Like, he's very aggressive. He makes a lot of weak contact because of that. The approach is not good. He expands the zone a lot, but the defense is so good. The bar for him offensively is very low. Like, he's not going to have to hit a lot to be, even like potentially an everyday guy, because he could be like a 70 defender out there.
Right.
So I'm obviously buying in that sense. I think that long-term he's a top 10 prospect now, but I'm just cautious with the offensive projection. Like, I don't think he's like the next coming at the plate. I mean, and I could be wrong. Like, believe me, like it would be great if I was wrong. Right. But I just think there are some concerns with him offensively with the hit tool that I'm not like sure. I'm not sure. I'm not going to be putting like a 6 on the hit tool, for example, or anything like that. Even though if you look at the stats, you might think that that's, he's that type of hitter. Mm-hmm. I just, with his approach, I'm just more worried, it might be closer to a 40 right now.
Moving on to the mound, Ian, we've got 3 guys we wanted to mention. The first, a guy who are you going to see tomorrow, in Brian Baio, who has just been dealing in Worcester.
I mean, I also saw him earlier this week.
And you saw him earlier too, but I'm just,
maybe I didn't mean to imply. I
didn't mean to imply you hadn't seen him at all. But with what you've seen out of him, you've seen him twice in Worcester, 3 times, once in
3 times overall, but twice in Worcester. Yeah.
I mean, it's at the point now where I thought there was a legitimate chance he pitched in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, he's very good. And I think, and I mentioned this on Twitter, that the third start was the most impressive, even though I don't think the line was the best. I think the second start, he had like 10 strikeouts, but his third start, the way he just controlled everything, I think he threw 7 innings, gave up, I think, like a couple hits, no runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. And he just knows how to pitch now in a way that I didn't know was possible with him. Like, he's impossible. They can't square him up at all. Like, everything is weak contact on the ground. His ground ball rate's like 60+% right now, which is insane.
His ground out to air out rate on MILB, at least, is he's getting 3 times as many ground outs as air outs. I
mean, he didn't give up a single like hard ball hit to the outfield that entire game. His ground ball rate, according to Fangraphs, is 66.7% right now, which is just insane. Like, that's not normal. And when you see the way he's pitching, though, it makes sense. Like, he's throwing this 2-seamer that is just nasty, and the movement it shows, and it's just completely changed the way he can pitch with it.
Yep.
Because he has a pitch now that can just generate a ton of weak contact that's hard to square up, and it moves hard in on righties. And when you and that allows his 4-seam to play better up in the zone, and it allows his changeup down to play better. It allows the slider away to play better. I mean, he made Eloy Jimenez in this game, who obviously, very exciting young hitter. I think he's, borderline all-star a couple years ago. Struck him out twice and got 2 weak ground outs, and he had no chance. And like, I put the video of him, the final at bat, on our the Sox Prospects Instagram. Check it out if you're not subscribed, and on Twitter. And Eloy just was flummoxed. Like, he went slider, changeup to strike him out. Didn't even need his fastball, and he used fastball to get him out the 3 previous times. And yeah, he just, his development as a pitcher this year has just been so impressive to watch. And I think he's easily a top 50 national prospect. And I think we kind of talked about in the preseason that he could make that jump. And it's just fun when a prospect takes that next step. And now I think it's good that he's getting the recognition he deserves. But I think that while he's a very, very exciting pitching prospect, there is some perspective needed. Like, and we've talked about it a lot, projecting guys an ace is super hard. There are very few aces in all of baseball. Not every team has an ace.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you buying him as one of the top pitching prospects in baseball?
I think he is one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. I just don't think he has the ceiling of some of the other guys, if that
like
makes sense.
Yuri Perez.
Yeah, like a Yuri Perez, Daniel Espino, like Grayson Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of think about his pitches, like he's got the 2 fastballs, he's got the changeup and the slider. And I'll just lump the fastballs together and go, to 60 for me now. The changeup is a 60 for me, potential. Like, this is all potential. And then I think the slider is like a potential 55. You can go 60 if you want. I think it's a little inconsistent for me to go there. But we're talking about a guy with 3 at least above average pitches, which is outstanding. Like, and the command has taken a major step forward this year, and I think he'll get to average command. That's, a really solid number 3, maybe a low end number 2 starter, mid number 2 starter. So fantastic. If that's the outcome, the Red Sox would be thrilled. when you're talking about those guys in that next tier, like, and then you said Yuri Perez, we'll just use an example. And I think, he might be the best pitching prospect in all of baseball.
They're him like Gray Rod, but Gray Rod's hurt.
Yeah. But just going off Fangraphs grades for him. So what I mentioned with Baio, so potential 60 fastball, 60 changeup, 55, 60 slider, 50 command. This is what they have for Yuri Perez: potential 70 fastball, potential 60 slider, potential 50 curveball, potential 60 changeup, and potentially 70 command. You kind of see that that's like, there's a pretty big gap between what I just described for Perez and someone like Baio. And I think that's why he doesn't reach that tier for me is it's a really good arsenal. It's 3, very usable pitches. He can miss bats with all his pitches. He gets a ton of contact on the ground, and I think he's for me, now definitely a starter, but it's just, he doesn't have that elite arsenal like some of the other, those next tier of pitching prospects have. And just, could Baio make that next step? I mean, he's every year he's taken a drastic step. So I'm not going to rule it out. Are the odds low? I would say so. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what's separating him from being, a top 10 prospect in all of baseball, or top 15 prospect in all of baseball, potential ace type, and more of like a very good, number 3, potentially a 2. And yeah, just that I think he's very good, but I would calm down the ace talk for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a potential starter for this team for a long time. Will he be the number 1 pitcher? I don't know. I don't know either way what'll happen on that. I don't think I would bet on it or against it. But that said, it's not like he's coming up and it's like, okay, this guy is going to be this team's ace for a while. I don't think he's quite there. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Another starter in Double-A. This starter in 62 and a third innings has a 3.61 ERA, 62 strikeouts and 62 and a third innings, 29 walks. The whip is 1.25, but batting average against is only 214. Ian, are you buying Jay Groom's stats this year as indicative of him being back, I guess, potentially?
Unfortunately, I'm not that convinced on him. Mm-hmm. And I think the things that are holding me back are, I don't think his command is good.
29 walks and 62 in a third inning. So not even command. His control is not great.
His control is good, but the command itself,
I would say it's not 60. He's
no. I'm saying the control is not good either.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm saying
the control
I'm just going to
good.
talk about command right now. But
sure,
he doesn't throw quality strikes. He obviously he'll throw strikes, but he's not able to dot when he needs to. He's not able to execute with 2 strikes, get that fastball when he needs to get that whiff. And I think that the command is what plays.
Yeah, finish your point. I just want to jump in after it with something on this.
The command is what plays into, he's got a very low swinging strike rate, like extremely low. And that's the concern for me, is I'm just not sure if he's not missing bats at the Double-A level, and the command and control are this, inconsistent. I'm just not sure what he is. Like, I've seen him this year. I've talked to people who've seen him, and it's a bucket of like 45, 50s, maybe. I'm not like the curveball is not back to close to the level it was before. I think it's, you guys will put a 50 on it. Maybe you'll go 55 at best. Other than that, I don't think he has a single pitch that is above a 50. And I don't think any of them are a 50, maybe the changeup, but it's, it's like a 45 fastball. It's a 40 slider, it's just the arsenal when you put it on paper. I mean, regardless of what the numbers look like, it doesn't stand out in the way that someone like Baio's does, or even like Chris Murphy does. Like, they just have better pitches than he does. And then when you combine all that, Groom is kind of developed into that sum of all parts pitcher, where he's going to need all of his pitches. He's going to need to be able to throw all of them for strikes, and he's going to need to be able to command to develop even like a back end starter. And that's why I'm not even convinced he's that right now. I think it's more like an up and down profile right now. And could that change? Sure. But just based on what I've seen and, digging into him this year, talking to other people and looking at the numbers, it's just there's some red flags kind of behind the scenes that are simmering.
1.3 home runs per 9. That's the command point you made, right? It's he's going to get squared up because he can't throw those quality strikes.
And then the thing is that, when you're walking, when you got a 4.2 walk per 9, that turns into a 3-run home run. And, you give up one of those and in the second inning, and, you're behind the 8 ball already. Like, there's definitely just some concerns there with him, with the arsenal, and just projecting it forward that I don't think are going to translate well against more advanced hitters.
And the last guy I wanted to talk about with you on this segment, Ian, is do you buy Frank German or Herman, however it's pronounced, as a potential late inning relief arm for the Red Sox, either this year or in the future? He's been pretty good this year. He's had good numbers in AA before, very good numbers before getting called up to Worcester. In Worcester, he's been
good.
Good.
Yeah.
He's been good. He's the guy that we get asked about out of any of these bullpen guys, because I think people, I mean, you hear about, is he going to come up and help the bullpen this year, period? Are you buying that?
I wouldn't count on him this year to help that much. Would I be surprised if he made it up? No. I think that because he's going to have to be added to the 40-man in the offseason anyway. But I think that him long term is, and I saw him again this week. He was like 96 to 98, slider and splitter. I just don't know if he has a secondary pitch that's like that true plus secondary pitch to get, to be a late inning guy. He's got the fastball. He's 96 to 98. I've heard he's topped out at 100. Like, it's good velocity, but you have to have a consistent put away pitch in order to be I think a closer or even like an 8th inning guy. And I'm just not sure he has that right now. Could he get it eventually? Sure. But with what I've seen from this year, I think it's more like, a 6th, 7th inning profile, hard throwing righty, got to tighten up the command and control a little bit, and he'll miss bats. He can strike guys out, but I just think there's going to be some issues against lefties. And I think the consistency is going to be the thing with him. I just think from outing to outing, he the pitches won't always be the same. Like the slider will come and go within outings, and from outing to outing, same thing with the splitter. So I just think, right now I wouldn't count on it, but I think in the future, could he be like a legit, middle to like low end setup guy? Sure. But I wouldn't be counting on it for this year.
All right. Are you buying it? We'll probably bring that back at some point, maybe, if we feel like it. All right. Well, let's close the show the way we always do. We've got a ton of your emails, but if you want to send us an email, send it to podcast@soxprospects.com, because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. So send them on in. And of course, some of these are going to be either, over time, not really relevant anymore, or things we already talked about on the show. So if we don't read your email, that's probably why. But Ian, our first email comes from Daniel. This is an interesting question. He says, if you can give one Red Sox prospect from the past 5 years just one attribute, who and what would it be? He chooses control for Tanner Houck, #filthy, which I don't think control is really necessarily the issue with Houck. But that's
if it was Houck, I wouldn't have gone with that. I would have gone
with a third pitch myself. Yeah.
I would agree.
I have some ideas. I know this is kind of getting sprung on you.
Give me a second.
A couple that I would go with. One would be Bobby Dahlbeck, better hit tool.
It's a good one.
Pretty much everything else is there. The other one that I think might be interesting is Jay Groom not getting hurt, not getting Tommy John.
Yeah,
because we saw him literally the day he blew his elbow out.
We were at that start. He was insane that day. He was 94, 96 with a 70 curveball. Like, it was absurdly good.
Back. Yeah. So I think those are two that stand out for me. The third one I might throw out there is Jarren Duran and defense.
Those are all good ones. So is it one tool or what was it?
It's one attribute. So I think you can kind of take it more broadly than tool, but and this, accepting, it's not like we're going to say, Daniel Flores not dying, obviously, because I would prefer that he have lived for any number of non-baseball reasons, never mind baseball. But those are some of the answers that stood out to me. I don't know if any others come to mind for you.
Yeah, you kind of took all the three,
I knew I was, and that's
obvious
fine.
Ones.
You can punt if you can't think of any.
Here's one. I would love to have seen Andrew Benintendi with like power. I know he had like 20 home runs and stuff like that, but if he could, if he had like legit raw power or more power than that, and I think that would have been kind of interesting. That was kind of the only one. The Dahlbeck one I think is a very good one. Him with a hit tool. Same with Houck with a third pitch. Those would probably be my top two.
Yep, definitely. Our next question comes from Matt. He says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. With all the talk about minor league promotions this time of year, I had a question about the mechanics of promotions between the minor league levels, i.e. not between AAA and the majors. Basically, I'm interested to know who makes the decisions about who gets promoted and when between the minor league affiliates. I know there are a lot of people involved, but I've never really thought about who makes the final decision when it comes to a specific player. If the development staff is in agreement that someone is ready to move up a level, does the buck stop with them, or do they have to make a call up to Boston to make sure it's cool to promote someone from Salem to Greenville? Does the caliber of player matter, i.e. would someone higher in the food chain need to be consulted before promoting Nick York as opposed to an org guy getting too old for his level? Do you think there are decisions made between the minor league clubs where a call is never even placed to Bloom's office? Just something I'm hoping to learn more about. Thanks. Great question, Matt. This is another one of those things where people talk about like Chaim Bloom with the minor leagues, right? Chaim Bloom was probably not consulted on the decision to promote Nico Cavatas to Greenville, right? I think the piece on it here about,
I would assume he was told about it.
Well, probably told about it. But it's like, hey, this guy's doing this. We'd like to promote him. He's probably like, yeah, okay, great, fine. Like, I don't think he's asking, well, what about his swinging strike rate or something, right? For smaller guys, yeah. For maybe not smaller guys, considering I was just talking about Cavatas, but for like the less big guys, I think it probably is a decision that's made in like Brian Abraham consulting with the coaching staff and the player dev staff. But yeah, if you're talking Marcelo Meyer, Nick York, Tristan Casas type, maybe you're giving a little bit more of a heads up and thought to Chaim Bloom's office, but I don't think, or I mean, look, you've got guys like Ben Crockett that are now above, Brian Abraham. You've got, do you consult with Eddie Romero when it's an international guy who he helped sign, et cetera. So it's a team decision. I don't know if there's one person the buck stops with. And I'm sure whoever the buck stops with, they're incorporating a whole bunch of other input. So not to duck the question, but again, I would say I don't think that it's a Chaim Bloom decision at the very least. So thank you for the question, Matt. Ian, our next email comes from Andrew. He says, hey guys, quick question for the pod. I'm sure you're busy with real minor league scouting, but do you have any plans to check out the FCBL to see the Brockton Rocks? I just saw that Manny Ramirez Jr., Pedro Martinez Jr., and David Ortiz's son, D'Angelo is his name, right? Are playing for them this summer. I know they've all got years of development left, but baseball legacy / nepotism is always exciting. Also open to your takes on the rest of the New England collegiate baseball going on this summer. Always looking to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys. Andrew, I read this just because this is hilarious. Not only are those three guys on the team, but Gary Sheffield's son is on the team and Keith Fulk's son is on the team.
Yeah, so, it's a loaded,
absolutely loaded roster. I mean, I live in DC, so no, I have no plans to see that team. But I do.
Yeah, I don't. But I've always wanted to go down to the Cape League and check that out. It's something I haven't done, mainly because of it's during the minor league season. So I would
go there first too myself. Actually,
yeah,
I've been to a Brockton Rocks game back when they were an indie league team. Now they're
if I was to check out I've been to a Rocks game before, just not recently. But yeah, if I was to go check out some amateur baseball, it would definitely be the Cape Cod League. And it's something I could see myself doing. It's just right now there's a lot of good baseball with the minor leagues up here. So trying to get out, especially with all the new guys up to Portland and guys coming through, Sale's going to be coming through, Malato's going to be coming through. So there's a lot of guys that we need to check in on that I'm kind of prioritizing right now.
Put it this way. If I happened to be in Brockton and someone was like, let's go see the Brockton Rocks, would I go? Sure. Like, it's interesting, right? Am I going to go out of my way to see them? Probably not. But if doesn't mean y'all shouldn't. If you're interested, go check them out, man. Our next question comes from Brendan. He says, hi again, guys. Thanks for getting all my emails the last few episodes. At a level like rookie ball, what are you looking for at that level from players? I know it's an open-ended question, but where do Sox prospects begin when it comes to scouting the lower level players in the system? What are you watching for? What excites you, makes you nervous? Are they too young to get excited, nervous about anything? I asked about Elmer Rodriguez-Cruz in a previous question, and I'll try to piggyback off the above with using him as an example. Not an overly known prospect. When you get a good read at him at the FCL level, what are you looking for from him or a pitcher at his level that would get him ranked like someone like a Miguel Blaze, number 8, but only at the FCL level? If the questions don't make sense, my apologies. Thanks again, Brendan. No, question makes
very
perfect
good question.
Sense.
Yeah, no, it's very good question.
Let me put it this way. You're not looking at stats.
No, I don't.
For one thing.
FCL stats are some of the most leading things you'll ever see because There are certain teams down there that are just atrocious.
And they're only playing so many. You only play like 5 teams.
I think 4 teams or 5 teams.
Yeah. Well, but some teams have some organizations have the multiple teams. So now it's like 7 because the Orioles have 2 teams. Or something.
There was a pitching staff last year, and I'm not going to say who, but I mean, you could probably figure it out if you look. But they were absolutely awful, and it was like all guys throwing 88 to 90. And then you have other teams like the Rays who have like a bunch of guys who are throwing like 95 to 98. Right. So it's so like the stats can get so skewed by that.
Yep.
That I think the first thing that I'm looking for when we're talking about prospects in that stage of their development is physical. I want to see like how athletic they are, how much projection is there in their frame, things like that. And I think both of the 2 guys you listed are great examples of that. Miguel Blaze is just this loose, like really twitchy, tall, lanky, a lot of projection, a lot of athleticism. Like you can just tell when he moves, it's like he's gliding. Yeah. And similarly, Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is like he's 6'4", like 160. I think he's listed
limbs, the king tall, of limbs.
Lanky, that's his new nickname. Arms, like a lot of projection on that frame. Like those are things that you like to see. You'd much rather see that than there are certain guys. And I'm gonna go back a few years, but I don't know if you remember Danny Diaz. I know Chris does, but he was someone who, and this is not his fault really. Like he signed, he was 6'1", he was 6'1", 170 when he signed. And by the time he made stateside, he was like 6'4", 240.
And to be fair, actually, that happened between when he signed and when he debuted in the Dominican Summer League. Yeah, maybe not all of that, but he signed as a shortstop. They thought he might move to third. He
grew a ton.
And he had an enormous growth spurt and just became like a power hitting, like big guy.
Who couldn't hit, but yeah, right. So, but that's like, those are the type of things that I'm looking for. And like, when you see someone who's 18 and 17 with kind of that high maintenance body, that's definitely a red flag. So I think those are kind of the initial things you're looking for. And then the next thing I think is you're just kind of like looking for, are there some tools here that you can get excited about? And going back to Blaze as the example, like he can really run. And when you watch his swing, it's a fluid swing. There's bat speed. Like those are things you can see at any age. And taking the FCL, for example, like another hitter that I kind of like was Abram Liendo. Was just, Abram. I mean, Ravello's not healthy, so I wasn't going to say him, but Abram Liendo is like a 5'7" shortstop, but he has like I like his swing a lot. He can really pick it in the field. And I think it's like showing with the way they're playing him. Like he hits leadoff every game. I think he's playing shortstop every game.
He is, but that's in part because Ravello's hurt.
Well, no, I know, but I'm saying just he's a priority guy. Like we saw him in spring
training. He's a priority guy, no question.
We saw him in spring training, and he's the type of guy that if he was like 6 foot, he would be 30 spots higher in our rankings. But because he's like 5'7", 5'8", there's just not a lot of upside. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, with him, you can see the feel at the plate is already starting to like, he kind of has an idea of what he's doing. He knows what a ball and a strike is, like little things like that. You can start seeing at that level, and it's not going to be great even with someone like him. But if they have any sort of feel, that stands out to you. And I think those are the kind of things with hitters. And then with pitchers, it's the same thing. And someone who I'm pretty excited about and who's pitching well right here, and this is actually good because this is a good excuse to talk about him, is Jedrickson Paez. Yeah. And he was someone I saw in I was tipped off to him last year from someone who saw him last year. And then so we had him, he was on the radar, and then I saw him earlier this year in spring, and first thing, velocity had jumped. He was like 84 to 86 last year. This year he's like 88 to 91 in spring training. So that's already, that's a pretty significant jump. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was most impressive though is, he's a 17, 18-year-old who actually had feel for command. Like he could execute a pitch. And that's not something you see with a lot of those younger pitchers. And so, if I can see someone at 17, 18 who's executing a breaking ball even once or twice, like that's something that's going to stand out and I'm going to note. And you look at what he's done this year, his 20 innings, 21 strikeouts, 3 walks, and strikeouts are not kind of, it's, it's good to see,
especially in the FCL,
but the walks is what I want to see, because that kind of confirms what I thought, where, this is a type of guy that I like his long-term command profile a lot. And so, he doesn't have that raw stuff that we're seeing out of like, or even the projectability of someone like Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, but he has other traits that, you can see how they can spin a breaking ball, what type of that's the type of thing you can see at that age. You can see if they have any feel for a changeup, things like that. And he's someone who I think he has feel for both his secondaries. I think, he's got the potential to have two good secondaries. It's going to be what's the fastball going to develop into. So yeah, I think there's, those are all things that you can see, but the hardest thing, and I think the most important thing, is those are things that have to be done in person. FCLs, those guys down there, you can't judge by the statistics what you're seeing on and they can inform you and maybe, give you an idea of, oh, maybe I want to pay attention to this guy, but they're not going to tell you who's a prospect and who's not. You need to see those guys in person, get eyes on them to have a good idea of, and those are a lot of the things we're looking for. You
have to see how they're getting there too, because it cuts in both directions, because Jeremiah Pineda is the guy that comes to mind that led the then GCL in hitting, and they traded him with the Twins, and I don't know that he made it above A ball. So it's just kind of, so you got to keep that in mind. But great question. Our next email comes from Dan, who says, "Hi guys, congrats on 250 episodes. At the deadline, if the Red Sox had to give up either Blaze Jordan or Alex Binelas to get their ideal player, who would you want the Red Sox to keep and why?" Dan. I think the easiest way I think it's basically, who do you have ranked higher? Who do you like better? Because I don't think there's anything unique to.
No, I disagree. Yes, that's the correct answer, but
you're going to say name is
Blaze Jordan. You keep Blaze Jordan. Come on.
I thought you were going to cynically say keep Blaze Jordan because that's more page hits for the site.
No,
because everybody loves Blaze. No, I'm leaving it. People like reading about Blaze Jordan. I'm not cutting that.
Blaze Jordan it's cool. That's
it awesome, is cool, and I get that.
Blaze. So yeah, no,
but the thing is, because Rob Bradford is trying to make Alex Binelas a thing.
I think it's very close. Correspondent. There are two guys that we have close in the rankings now. I think they're going to be close again next month.
I think they are.
I do think there are some similarities in their profiles.
Yeah.
Mostly just positionally, but I would. The easy answer is the higher rated guy. The more fun answer is obviously keep Blaze. His name is Blaze. That's awesome.
His name is Blaze Jordan.
But I think that selfishly, I would like to see where Blaze Jordan goes developmentally in the future.
Sure.
Whereas Binelas, I'm definitely interested by him, and I'm looking forward to getting a good look at him next week with Portland. But Blaze is just such a unique player, and the fact that he's putting up the performance he is right now while still having these kind of red flags. Or not red flags isn't the right word, but kind of these areas that he has pretty big holes in his game, but he still is overcoming that and putting up the performance he is just very interesting to me. And I think he's a good litmus test for a type of player that I might not necessarily catch my eye. Taking away his name and everything, just the tool set is not kind of the type of player that I think that highly of. But I would be very interested to see if, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I need to be more open to these type of, right, below average athlete, below average defender, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to see where he goes developmentally. So I'd like him to remain in the organization.
Fair. I'm interested. I wonder if they'll give Binelas some run in left or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
I need
to see him. I don't even know how good he is. I barely saw. I barely saw him at third or first. Even
he was splitting both positions with Northcutt and Greenville
in spring training. I didn't get a good look at him defensively, so I want to see what he looks like at first and third to see where it goes.
Yeah. But interesting question. Our next email comes from Ethan, who says, "How would you grade the Jonathan Aruz Rule 5 selection? Felt like he never took a step forward after showing promise in year one. Ultimately, what are you really going to get at the end of the Rule 5 draft, though, Ethan?" Ethan, I think you kind of hit on it.
It's fine. He played in the big leagues, and he was usable for, he was usable depth for a couple seasons. I think that has value.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, again, it's the type of player who's available in Rule 5. I don't know about grading the Rule 5 pick. Grading him as a player, I think he's maybe a bench infielder, but that's probably his ceiling right now. I think he's more of an up and down guy, personally. But as a Rule 5 pick, whatever. Sure, he's stuck as a bench guy. Next email comes from John, who says, "Hi, Ian and Chris. I can't remember another time when the Red Sox had 4 legit pitching prospects who are all in the 40-man and all in AAA, and Baio, Crawford, Winkowski, and Seibold. Do you think this sets up a scenario post All-Star break where the Red Sox could become liberal users of minor league options, having 4 pitchers cycle in and out of 1 or 2 roster spots Even with the requirement that optioned pitchers spend 15 days in the minors, it would still allow the Red Sox to add a fresh young arm every 4 or 5 days. John, Ian, I don't see why they would do that. You would want your best guy up. It's not like the guys wouldn't be pitching in AAA.
Yeah, I think that's the answer, is that if one of them was good, and even if they needed those guys, which I'm not convinced they will, if they get everyone back healthy. But yeah, you would want to stay consistent with someone and let them kind of get used to it. And if they were good, you wouldn't want to mess with that.
Well, put it this way. I mean, I don't think Cutter Crawford is starting another game in the majors this year unless it's on an emergency short-term.
Yeah, kind of like what he did against, who was it, the Cardinals?
Yeah, like he knew the day before or something that he was coming up.
He was good in that game.
And he was good. Yeah. It was just because his day lined up. And I think that's the scenario in which you see Crawford. I think that's the scenario in which you would see Baio anytime soon, just because they've got Seibold and Winkowski who are ready to be that guy. Yeah. And if you can line them up, you are going to use one or two of them.
Exactly. And I think with Crawford, I still would like him to be more in that bridge role, that bulk relief role. I think that's where he's best suited long term. And
concur.
I think that's the role that he could help the team most in the second half. If he can kind of, show some more command, better execute his secondaries, then I think that's kind of what we talked about earlier, what they're missing right now. And similarly, like, I wouldn't rule out Baio moving into that role down the stretch. I think he could be fantastic in a 2 to 3 inning relief role. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize this at the time. His like inning totals are not that high.
Are they really not?
No, his career high in innings is 117. That was in 2019. Last year he only threw like 94 innings. So he's gonna have to be either skipped or they're gonna have to start cutting back pretty soon. Because as of right now, he's gonna exceed, even plus 25 to 30 by like end of July, mid-August. So I would not be surprised at all if he eventually transitions to the bullpen with the eye towards a call up and maybe that that bridge relief role.
I guess, but the amount of innings going up thing has been to some degree disproven. I'm sure there's some degree of it that's
but it might be disproven, but the Red Sox,
all innings are not created equal, right? Like, he's going to get skipped, but it's like
I don't think
throwing a bunch of 10 pitch innings. That's different than throwing.
I also don't think with him it's innings. I think it's more they're monitoring pitches, because as you said, like he threw 7 innings in that last start in Charlotte. Those were like the 7 easiest innings I've seen a guy throw in years. Like he was not challenged really. You know what I mean? And he threw 90 pitches in 7 innings. Like if he, you can throw 90 pitches in 4 innings. Some guys can. Mm-hmm. And so, as you said, like not all innings are created equal. I would assume it's more of like a pitch count thing than an inning thing. But it's just something worth monitoring with him.
Yeah, definitely. Our next question comes from Aaron, who says, "Hi guys. So with Jeter Downs getting called up, albeit short as it likely will be, I was wondering when it might be time to revisit the Brusdar Gratterall almost deal. If I recall, the Red Sox found medical concerns that made them think he'd be a reliever and not a starter, which by the way happened. Which is why they nixed it and eventually ended up with Jeter Downs. Gratterall has indeed become a reliever, but one who made an impact on the Dodgers World Series win out of the gate. Last year, he was slightly below average in only 33 innings, and this year slightly above average in just about the same number of innings, but obviously has less than half the way through the season. Downs, meanwhile, has had his prospect status dip and seems set for it to dip again after a brutal 6-week stretch. For the record, I totally understand why they pushed for Downs instead, and he was a higher ranked prospect with everyday regular upside. But in retrospect, would it have been better to take Gratterall, someone who could help the pen right now, or would you still prefer Downs as he has the upside to grow? Thanks as always, Aaron.
I think that you can't just look at Downs. You have to also factor in Connor Wong, because they got both of them as a substitute for Gratterall. Mm-hmm. And I think the process was correct. You take a chance that you can get an everyday, infielder or potentially like catcher. You take 2 shots at an everyday position player over a guy if you convince he's a reliever any day of the week to me. Do I think Gratterall could help them? Sure. But I think that the role he's playing, which is not a late inning role yet, is the most replaceable of anything. I mean, we saw like the Red Sox went out and found John Schreiber literally like off waivers. So I think that at the end of the day, like the Downs thing might not work out or Wong might not work out, though. I think Wong is definitely looking interesting right now. That you take the shot on those two, over a guy like Gratterall any day of the week. And he's going to be like a 1 WAR reliever at best this year. Like that's replaceable to me.
At this point of the year, he's on Baseball Reference at least a .2 WAR
Okay,
reliever.
so he's not even going to get to 1. He's going to be like 0.5, 0.6. He's 0.3 on Fangraphs. So
yeah. I'm trying to look up like who his numbers compare with. So he's thrown 31 2/3 innings, ERA and of 3.7 or 3.69, 27 Ks and 31 2/3 innings. That's not that different than Tyler Danish. Like he's basically Tyler Danish. Like
he's better than Tyler Danish.
Jake Diekman, maybe he's Jake Diekman. Diekman's got comparable numbers. Oh no, Diekman's got a higher Webb.
I was about to say
Brazier. Yeah, he's Brazier-ish.
Looking at his Statcast stuff, like there's good stuff. Like his velo is good. He doesn't.
I'm looking at performance though, like what he has done this year and how it would translate. Like it's not like he would definitely be closing for this team.
No, he would be in the mix with he'd be like in the Strom, or he'd be a right-handed Strom. Like he'd be like a 7th, 8th inning guy.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. That sounds
7th inning probably. I would take.
Yeah, the numbers compare well with Strom. I think that's probably a good.
But if you look at his Statcast stuff, it's like he's not striking that many guys out. The walk rate's a little high. He just doesn't get that many whiffs.
Right.
And yeah, that's what's holding him back, I think, from turning into a late inning guy.
People remember what he did that year. He came up and helped, and he was like a setup guy on the World Series team. And he's not that guy anymore, really.
No, they're not using him as a setup guy. No. He's like a middle reliever for them.
Mm-hmm. Next question comes from Tyler. He says, "Hey guys, I was wondering what your thoughts on the eventual traffic jam at the major league level once Christian Arroyo," and he says Duran, but I think he means Kike Hernandez, return. Both Rob Refsnyder and Jarren Duran have contributed a lot to the top of the order while they've been up. Hard to send either down. I think we already talked about this. They're not going to DFA Rob Refsnyder. It might be that Duran goes back down. We talked about that one earlier.
Quickly circling, but yeah, you're right, and we talked about it earlier. Circling back though, actually, I guess he is now their setup guy because they've lost their top 3 setup righties for the season.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well, Treinen officially done?
Yeah.
He might come back late.
He might come back, but he's on the 60 right now.
Yeah, he's been out all year.
Tommy Canley's on the 60, and Daniel Hudson got hurt.
Just got hurt.
Tore his ACL or something yesterday. Yep. So yeah, I should just want to correct myself. He is in a setup role now. He was not when everyone was healthy.
Fair. Next question is from Eric. He says, "Chris and Ian, love the podcast." Writing in with 2 questions. First, you think Jarren Duran has done enough to extend his time in Boston? We talked about that. Second, based on what you've heard or seen of Miguel Bleis, how would you think he would be viewed as a draft prospect if he were draft eligible this year? Maybe not a fair comparison, but he did just turn 18, so similar age to a high school senior. Would he be a potential first-round pick, top 100? Thanks, Eric. No question, first round.
Oh, he would be a no doubt first-round pick.
I don't know if he'd be top 10 or not, just because I don't know what the draft class looks like.
He's not. The top prospect is Drew Jones, who's an outfielder.
Son of Andrew.
Yeah, but I think he would be a definite first-round pick. He'd probably be looking at, I would guess, in like the 10 to 20 range, like that mid first round.
That's based on gut feel, and I think that sounds about right. Like he probably compares favorably, to use a name people might know, to Joshua Baez, the local kid from last year's draft who got drafted at near the end of the first round, I think.
Oh, I would take him over Baez.
That's what I'm saying. Compares favorably.
Way more athletic.
No, I know. I'm saying compares favorably. Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So a first rounder, but I don't know that he would be like a top half of the first rounder or not. He may not. Next question comes from Gregory. He says, "Hello, given the defensive limitations Duran has, I'm curious what you two think about a trade package centered around Duran and Ramon Laureano of the Athletics."
Laureano would be a great defender for them. I don't think he's really hit a lot since he came back from his suspension. I don't love trading for Ramon Laureano in a vacuum. He's been 236, 319, 351 this year. Yeah. I wouldn't. Nah. I don't think they're going to trade for an outfielder, because if they are, it's going to be fine. If they're, they've gotten terrible production out of the outfield, but they're all playing fine as of like mid-May. Yeah, and if they trade for an outfielder, I think it would be more corner outfielder than a center fielder. I don't think they're going to bench Kike Hernandez. Like, I think he's an everyday guy, and the Red Sox are comfortable with him out there. Next email comes from Tim. He says, "Hi guys, as always, thanks for the amazing info you provide. Love the daily recaps. Are you surprised that Blaze Jordan's low strikeout percentage? Seems like the home runs are coming now as well." I thought he would struggle with the K rate. There's quality of contact too. Like, it's not just K rate. I'm glad the K rate's low. I don't know.
I don't know that I have much to say more about it than that. It's not like he was a guy who came in and we thought he would have this enormous K rate.
No, I mean, I think that you when you think about like high school sluggers, there's often kind of like a bias.
It's the presumption of what's going to be the problem.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that with him, when you're pretty aggressive, you can make contact, and he does have some feel for hit. Like I do like him a little bit at the plate with that. So yeah, I think that's working out for him.
All right, our next email comes from Rick, spelled R-I-C, like Ric Flair. Hi, Chris and Ian. Rob Refsnyder has been hot with the bat, but so is Duran, which he missed. It's got to be an autocorrect. It's spelled durian, like the fruit. I interpret Refsnyder as more of an org guy, while I personally view Duran as a trade chip right now. So his questions are: one, how does Refsnyder's defense compare to Duran's? I can't imagine it's worse. It's better. He's not like a Gold Glover, but it's better, right? Two, how do you feel the team gets the most value by showcasing Duran for trade value or keeping Refsnyder around as a bench guy while he's on a streak? Three, tell me why all of my opinions are incorrect. Thanks again for all you both do keeping us informed. We really are spoiled. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for the nice words, Rick. Maybe they trade Duran, maybe they don't. I don't know.
I also don't think they need to keep him in the majors to like showcase him as a trade chip. I think people know what he is now.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters really if he's in the majors or in the minors.
He's not changing anyone's minds by what he does in the next month.
No, that's what I mean. And it could be in the majors or the minors. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I just think that like it's kind of a depth thing. It goes back to what Chaim Bloom preaches, which is, it's every guy 1 to 40 and beyond matters. Would you rather have just Jarren Duran on your bench and Rob Refsnyder in another organization, or Jarren Duran in the minors and Rob Refsnyder still on your roster as the fourth outfielder? And it's easy for me that you do the latter situation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that Refsnyder is going to he's kind of like secured his spot, and Duran is going to go back down whenever Hernandez comes up, assuming everyone else is healthy. I just think that, organizationally that makes the most sense and keeps them in the strongest position for the future.
Mm-hmm. And then our next email comes from, I think it's pronounced Etan. There's some questions in here that we've either already hit or that are just wrong. Like it asks, why hasn't Nico Cavatas been called up? And we got it tonight. Nico Cavatas did get called up. So, all right, let's go. Our first question in here that we can talk about. Do you think Connor Wong is a viable starting option next year? He mentions that Wong has quietly had a good year in AAA. His AAA WRC plus is 106. And more importantly, his K rate is down to 19.4%. His walk rate is 9.4%, both easily career bests. The various Fangraphs projections peg him with the WRC plus in the high 80s today, better than Vasquez's career rate. Or do you think they re-sign Vasquez to a modest 2-year, $10 million deal and let Wong play 30% of the time? Ian, I'm at the point now where next year I'm comfortable going into the year with Wong as the backup personally.
Yeah, I think that he should replace Pilecki next year. And I think that the reason is like the barrier for hitting is so low for a backup catcher. The most important thing is how you handle the pitchers. And I think he works really well with the pitchers from what I understand. I think they really like throwing to him. And that's, if you trust your catcher, that's the most important thing. So I would not be surprised at all if he's the backup catcher next year. I'm not sure they would turn over the starting role to him, but I mean, if they re-sign Vasquez on cheap money and they go with them too, I'd be fine with that. And if Wong hits well enough, would they transition to more like maybe an even split and then Wong taking the role? I absolutely could see that.
Yeah. I think I would not feel comfortable giving him the job next year.
No,
by any stretch.
He's got to
win that job.
But if he earns it by his play and, his performance to the plate with how he handles the pitching staff, then I'd be fine with it. But I think that he's done a great job kind of reestablishing himself as a definite like MLB catcher. It's just the question is, what is the ultimate role?
His next question is, you guys made a great early call on Ceddanne Rafaela. His start in AAA has everyone drooling, and Fangraphs steamer projections already put him at a 101 WRC plus, same as Duran. Given how much better he is in center field than Duran, do you think the Red Sox are thinking he could take over for Kike in center field next year? Sidebar, Duran is terrible in the outfield and not an impressive hitter. Outside of some triples and a few grounders beaten out, which I do not agree with at all. But that said, as far as the question about
he's Rafaela, not ready next year.
He's not ready. He's not going to be ready.
His approach, I mean, I don't know if this can happen. Obviously I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year he's sitting like 240 in Portland. Like he's just got the type of profile. It's going to be volatile. He's going to be prone to like some cold streaks. He'll go a whole week. He'll go, 2 for 25 in a week or something. And then he's going to have his weeks where he kills it. But yeah, just with his approach, he's going to need more seasoning.
Yeah. I mean, look at it this way. I mean, Duran made it to AA after a hot half a year in Salem, and then he needed all of 20. I mean, I guess 2020, he didn't come up at all. And then last year in 2021, he barely came up until the end of the year. So by that timeline, you're looking at Rafaela in the majors in 2024. So yeah, he's definitely not taking over next year. And the last question he did, I'll just get to the point. He asked, if you were to rank Darwinzon Hernandez today, where would you put him? He was once ranked as high as third in the Sox prospects rankings. He's still only 25, which is a fair point to make. Where would you rank Darwinzon Hernandez? I think he's probably personally I would go down in the 40s.
Oh no, I was 30s. Way higher than that.
Higher?
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff's nasty, but the control. I mean, so okay. If you put him in the Worcester
relief bullpen. Bucket. Yeah, the Worcester relief bucket. It's like 30-ish or 30 to 35. Is that where it is?
Yeah. Where did I said 40?
You said the 40s.
Well, I meant like low 40s.
I would say 25 to 30 was more.
25 to 30. You would go that high. We don't have any relievers that high.
He could be a multi. We have Cutter Crawford, who I think is a multi-inning reliever.
Okay, fair. I
think he's a multi-inning reliever. So
I would say that's fair. Okay,
and
I can buy that.
28, around there, like the 25.
I can buy that. I like it.
I would have him ahead of German. I'd have him probably below Crawford. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Aaron sent in one more email while we were recording, and I'll just get to the point here because we're going really long. But he's asking if we're seeing anything
new.
What
do people want though?
If we're seeing, that's true. If you're seeing anything new from Tanner Houck that's letting him succeed as a high leverage one inning guy, or if he looks like the same guy just being used in a better way, which is a fair question. I'm not seeing anything different. I just think it's a better role for him, and he can just air it out, throw his 2 pitches, and get in and out. That sound right, Ian?
Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. I think that's the biggest thing is that he's in a role that fits his skill set better. As you said, he's only having to throw 2 pitches. Really, that's what I was going to check was what his pitch usage was this year. And yeah, he's thrown splitters 6% of the time. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to use a splitter. He can, and I think the most important thing is in a relief role, it's very easy for him to just throw a ton of sliders, and that's his best pitch by far. I mean, if you look at it, batting average against the sliders, 175 this year, slug is 263 against his fastballs and sinker. It's 280 and 288 against the splitter. It's also in the 280s. His sliders, an excellent pitch, and in a bullpen, he can throw that pitch a ton of the time. And if you look, within the season, the fastball usage is decreasing, the slider usage is increasing. That's not a coincidence that, when he moves to the bullpen, he can throw more of those. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just, he can flip up his arsenal a little more. He doesn't have to throw as many fastballs or the pitches that aren't as good. He can just throw more sliders.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. But good question. Thanks for the question, Aaron. And thank you all for writing in. Again, it's podcast at soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you all want to hear about. So hit us up there. And with that, we will wrap things up. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. And make sure you're following the site on Twitter and Instagram at Sox Prospects. You can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects or by donating at soxprospects.com/donate. Support the Sox Prospects donation drive. We appreciate everyone who's able to support, and we want to give a special shout out to our $5 level Patreon supporters. That is Kyle C., Tyler Wooddraw, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kennan, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Ben NRI, Paul Daniel, Mendel Martin, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G., Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Colano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Keith Fox, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Andrew K., Tim Ware, Michael Murphy, Jason Stoneburner, Jack Monahan, Jason Parker, and our newest $5 level Patreon supporter, the guy who just emailed in. Correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but Etan Seibold, or Eitan, E-I-T-A-N. I'm going to go with Etan. Eden Seibold. But thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. We will be back in your eardrum soon. It'll be quicker this time, we promise. We've got some new mid-year rankings we're going to have to talk about, and oh boy, it's going to be a doozy. You're going to want to keep an eye out for that. Big things popping. We'll be back in your eardrum soon. Thanks, everybody.